Great advice from China's business leaders. Now this is thoughtful. Hello, I'm Trevor Lai in Shanghai. This week we're celebrating the second anniversary of Thoughtful China, our weekly online show about building brands and doing business in China. To celebrate this milestone, we've been asking the guests in our studio over the past few weeks one very interesting question. What's the best advice they've ever been given? This week, we're sharing their answers with you. We hope you enjoy this special episode of our show.
Best piece of advice is when I came into JWT in 1998, we won the Merrill Lynch account, which was very significant at the time. And we were developing a global campaign for Merrill Lynch, which was very exciting. And I remember having a meeting with the CEO at the time, Dave Kamansky, and I remember saying, the agreement was he approved the campaign, but he said, Bob, you're going to have to go to every market and more or less get everybody to approve this. And I said, well, Dave, you're the CEO. Can't you just tell everybody that, get on board and we're going to go with it? He said, no, because what I've learned in the role of being CEO is the more you use your authority in that way, the less authority you will have over the course of time. You really have to influence, motivate, and inspire people to get on board. So that was actually one of the best pieces of advice I got, especially ultimately when I became the global CEO of JWT, that being the CEO is not about being a dictator. It's about inspiring people and motivating them to do the right thing. So there's a difference.
Actually, that reminds me from my first boss, okay? We played together the Monopoly game, okay? And he shared with me the wisdom that I always remember is like, when you play the Monopoly, you always have the chance, and then you have the opportunity, all right? And he explained to me the chance just like the fate. It's just like you can't control it. It just comes. So what you can do is actually either you face it, take it, or you just try to escape, all right? But the way that he advised me, Stephen, you better face it. So I listened to him, and then I face it. On the opportunity side is something very interesting, that opportunity, you can create your own opportunity. And that's a very important piece of advice from him to me as well. Opportunity, you can grasp the opportunity whenever you identify it, or you can create your own opportunity. I myself, I would rather create my own opportunity and then to set the right direction that I want to go. So that's possibly one of the best advice that I remember always, and then I apply it, and then I share with it with my colleagues, my friends.
Come to work every day with a smile. It was something that was told to me a very long time ago with my first mentor, actually, a gentleman who lives in Toronto. And he came up to me one day and he said, you don't smile every day when you come into work anymore, and I've noticed it. And he said, so from this day forward, we're going to figure out what's going to make you smile every single day. And I have a motto that I tell myself, and I tell all of my staff and all the people that work around me, that if you're not smiling at work, then don't come into work. Because you need to love what you do if you're going to love what you do every day. So that's it. I smile every single day, and if you don't catch me smiling, then send me home.
I got a best piece of advice from my ex-global boss. At the time, I worked with a company called Bakersfield Poker Base. We call BSB. It's all gone now, okay? The global chairman said one thing to me about 18 years ago. He said, nothing happened unless it happened in retail.
I'd say one of the best pieces of advice, if you'd like to call it that I've been given, was from my grandfather. And he told me once, doesn't matter what you do, so long as you're the very best in the world at whatever it is. And his example was that he collected stamps. And he was the #1 stamp collector in the world for triangular stamps from the 1950s, from this particular island group with butterflies. So there was only one other person in the entire world who actually had an interest like him, and they were actually best mates. But in this particular niche, he was the world's #1. And I like the idea that it doesn't really matter what you choose to do, but that you can be the very best in your very, very, very niche area of what you do in the world. And I like that idea because it's very individualistic.
Best advice I've ever received would be that when I receive an email where I'm dying to hit the reply button and write an answer because it's angered me or it's upset me or I really feel that the writer is in the wrong, right, is to write the email reply, put it in my drafts folder, and come back and look at it 4 hours later. Not a minute before 4 hours. Every single time I've done this, I've changed what I would have written.
Yeah.
And every single time I haven't done it, I've regretted sending the email.
Well, I think I've received many bits of advice, but one that still sticks with you, it's a simplistic one of all. I was a friend with the late Tony Scott, who was a mentor of many directors and a usually charismatic person as well as an incredible director. And I remember I was shooting a film about 10 years ago, and we hit some difficulties with the actors and just producers and things. And I said to Tony, help me, what do I do? And he said, just kill, man, just kill. And I was like, wow, that sounds so harsh. But what he meant was just push on, just go for it. Don't ever stop, don't ever let them take away your energy and your enthusiasm for something. Because the director has to be the leader. Doesn't matter what's going on, essentially you are truly the captain of the boat. And I think it's as simple as that line was, that spirit has sort of remained inside myself, and there's many other people giving advice, but that seems to sort of put it in a nutshell.
I think one thing very important, when I studied actually as a journalist, and 5 years later when I'm going to choose where I'm going and get promoted as editor-in-chief, and there's advice coming from another journalist and quite senior journalist. He's now professors and doing the social reporting in Taiwan. He told me that, Lena, no matter where you go, how high you can fly, never forget the very, very beginning point that make you come to this field as a journalist. What is the most important thing to you? What's the value? What you want to bring to the world? Never forget it. I think this is a very important part as a journalist and now as a managing director, coming from everyday writing and now looking at the figures. But I never forget what is really my motivation to join this world of media and what I want to bring out to our readers. So I think in life that we may fly high, we may encounter some difficulties, but we never forget what is the beginning point can touch you and bring you and give you courage.
So the best advice I was given was by a now a dear friend, at the time a colleague, who was the CEO of Sinovate. His name was Adrian Chidor. And he basically told me kind of 3 principles to live by or to work by. And one is make sure that you're always challenging yourself and always learning. Constantly, don't settle for the status quo. Constantly be looking for opportunities to learn and push yourself. Second thing was surround yourself with good people who will challenge you, who will create a dynamic environment for which to learn from and grow from. And then the third piece, which really ties it all together, is constantly be working yourself out of a job. If you have confidence in your skills and your ability and you're constantly learning and building up your skill set, let go of what you're working on and look to the next challenge. And the best way of doing that is actually working yourself out of your current job.
The founder of BBH, Nigel Bogle, once told me that it is not the deal that you make, but the deal that you have to live with. And I thought that, that advice translates to making decision. It's not the decision that you make, it's the decision that you can live with. And I thought that has been some of the guiding principle for me.
Well, I grew up in a family of 7 kids, right in the middle. And that meant tough times. Battling both brothers and sisters. Wanted to get something done, I was usually back of the line. So I was complaining about this to my dad one day, and he goes, Mike, you need to understand a poem by Robert Frost. It's called A Road Not Taken. When all your brothers and sisters are going this way, you head that way. And you're going to discover things that they'll be wishing they had done themselves. That's really been formative for me in my lifetime, and I often like to quote the lines from memory. Let's see if I can remember them now. 2 roads diverged in the yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, and then I took the other as just as fair. That's been really valuable advice.
As a startup owner, I found one advice very helpful. It was from a book called Mavericks at Work. And the basic idea was about always focusing on your customers. Don't think about your competitors. And anytime when you find yourself falling into a conversation with your partners or stuff about competitors, you try to, drag back to your customers and to your stakeholders. And for Youthology, our customers are our marketers, the clients, and the youth. So we always make ourselves focus on the youth and the client, and by focusing on them, we were able to make some daring investment in things that are unique or strange, but we found worthwhile.
For me, it's probably when I was finishing high school, I had an English teacher that pushed me very hard. And when she asked me what I was going to do at university, I was very excitedly told her, I got this scholarship, I'm going to do business IT. And she was horrified. And it really shocked me, scholarship. And she said, no, that's terrible. The world needs more creative people, more people who dare to be a writer. And that thought stuck with me, and even though I did 2 years of business IT, eventually I switched to liberal arts. So I think that one line from her really changed the course of my life, and that's why I'm now in a field that mixes both technology and storytelling.
The best advice I've ever received, probably about 7 years before moving to China, I met a gentleman who had done a lot of research and cross cultures, and he said, oftentimes we see the differences between us as a reason why we should not connect with each other. But actually our differences are our greatest opportunity to learn from one another, and that's been really helpful since living in China.
I think that's probably Nielsen's global CEO, Dave Cajon, who once said that to all of us about being honest to your job. When you say that, it's because that in research industry, there are so many opportunities for you to have some kickback, and clients will ask you to change the data, change the report here and there. There's so many cases that we've heard about that. So he just give us this advice to being honest to your work, no matter how tiny the attraction is. Just don't do it. Just be what you be. And we, as a research agency, what we need to do is to present the real data to our clients for the real advices. That's I think the best advice that I've heard.
Well, happy birthday, Thoughtful China. The best advice I have received is, well, first of all, I don't really take much advice. Usually I go about my own way, but if there's something I remember and I try to follow, is actually that I think I read it in one of these books, like How to Be Successful, that every year you should do at least one significant thing, right? It can be something like starting a new business, doing an event or something, or charity-like or something. But you got to do at least one thing, and also don't do too much, because that will just divert you too much and you have a lot of half-baked ideas. But do at least one significant thing each year. I think that's very important.
So the best advice I've ever been given was at a dinner party, and it was in regards to how best to learn a language. So the world-acclaimed artist, Christo, told me with a cheeky smile, the best way to learn a language is in bed.
I think something that's very influential to my life is something my dad told me many years ago when I was a high school student. I was born and grew in Taiwan. It's a typical Asian environment where the academic pressure is intense for the kids. We're always searching for answer in terms of what we want to do in the future, like all the kids. And my dad just told me, hey, follow your heart. Life is short. So instead of giving pressure that you really want to be another doctor, another engineer, so on, you want to be yourself. So that gives me a lot of courage along the years when I decided to explore a new journey in my career that I really want to do, but that's associated with risk in life. But I'm brave enough to take that challenge because I know I'm following my heart. So that's very important to me.
When I was in college, actually, I got the best advice I ever got. I was studying to get 2 degrees at the same time and working really hard, and I came across a quote that really inspired me and changed how I think about the world and how I think about what my responsibility is in it. So I'm going to share it with you if you might. The quote is from Marianne Williamson. The quote is, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking or posturing so that people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others."
The best business advice I've seen is a quote from Henry Ford about persistence, that nothing substitutes for persistence. And there are plenty of smart people around who have not done well in business. There are plenty of very capable people who are not doing well in business. And I think what you need is the ability to withstand setbacks, to withstand failure, to get up. Some people say life is about getting up one more time than you're knocked down. And any business, any startup has twists and turns. Not every day is a sunny day. So you have to have that persistence, you have to have that faith in yourself, faith in what you're doing, and be able to get through challenges. So that is the single bit of advice I would pass on to others who are looking at business.
Congratulations on the Thoughtful China 2-year anniversary, and it's the best opportunity to share with my best advice from other people. Actually, it's a very simple sentence. It's like, it's from my line manager when I started my career in this industry. It's like, do the right thing instead of do things right.
So the single, perhaps most important piece of advice that I've been given came from my father, who himself worked in Asia for over 30 years. But he told me, mostly related to business, but I think this also applies in personal life, that you really need to stand up for your convictions, to speak your mind, and to speak up when you think something is right or something is wrong. If you have an opinion on a business perspective or a business decision, to make sure that you speak up. That does get me into trouble sometimes, but I think if I didn't say things, it would get me or my business or what I'm doing into even more trouble. So that's something I really try to live by, which is if you hear something, say something. If you think strongly about something, make sure you speak up, even if other people think that you're crazy, to really stay true to what you believe in.
I think the best advice I had was really not to just talk to or focus upon the senior clients or people in the room. I remember very early in my career that there was a junior client who was absolutely, disrespected by a senior management at various points, and a few years later he came back as a senior client on another piece of business and fired the agency. So since then I've always really been very careful to make sure that everyone is covered.
I'd like to share a piece of advice that sort of like have affected my career so far. I wish it was this advice though that my mom gave, marry rich. It didn't happen. So I have to give you my second best advice that I've heard so far. It's actually from Steve Jobs. I'm going to read it from my phone because it's quite long. The real leadership lessons of Steve Jobs: 1, focus. 2, simplify. 3, take responsibility end to end. 4, when behind, leapfrog. 5, put products before profits. 6, don't be a slave to focus group. 7, ban reality. 8, input. 9, push for perfection. 10, tolerate only A players. 11, engage face-to-face. 12, know the big picture and details. 13, combine the humanities and the sciences. And last, stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you.
After I graduated from the university many years ago, my first job was with a government agency. When I chatted with one of my colleagues who is a little bit older than I do, he told me that you have to be ready before opportunities come to you. I think that's something I've benefited from for many years. And actually, that's not only for my personal life and my personal career life, but also for the organization I have worked with. For instance, when I'm ready or the organization is ready with experiences, with knowledge we need with the skill set we need, with the structure we need, with the strategy we need, then when the opportunities come, we usually could get the success we want, we need. So that's something I like very well. And actually, I haven't got in touch with that colleague for many years, but I really want to thank him for the good advice he has given to me many years ago.
The best advice, or some, like I get a lot of advice from people, they want to offer me advice all the time. But I think the things that I find, actually the best advice that I've actually been given is not to take any advice. So I think you realize that everybody who's giving you that advice had a different circumstance that they were in that helped them succeed, and it could have been many things, like the people around them, the markets, their skill set, you name it. But I think it's best to understand why it worked for them and understand the principles that apply to what they decided to pursue. And I think that for me is important, as I find listening to some of the things that people have done that have worked, understanding what they did and what are the attitudes they were taking to do that. And part of it is the persistence. It's just like never take no for an answer is probably one of my favorite, is the fact that, you know, people will say no, but if you're persistent enough and you understand why they're saying no, it's very easy to understand how to convert that no eventually to a yes. And sometimes with many, like very simple things like timing. And maybe it's because this is not the right fit for that particular product that they have. There's so many reasons, but just, there's a lot of people I know that just kind of take the no and go, all right, I guess I'm not gonna work, right? But if you just ask them, it's so much easier to learn more about even your own product and the flaws that it may have, because nothing's perfect, and then continue to evolve from there.
Well, one of my former competitors, Chris Walton, once told me something that resonated with me, which was in China you're only ever one phone call away from a disaster. And I think that's true, that you need to be always mindful of the implications of the actions that you're doing, whether it be in media and the delivery of, you know, campaign objectives, or just in general life things that happen. I think you need to be prepared for things to take some time, and also to do a U-turn. And sometimes you do get a phone call which is quite disturbing.
That wraps it up for today. Be sure to subscribe to us on Tudo and YouTube. You can also follow us on Weibo and Twitter, and join our LinkedIn group. See you again.